Welcome to Horror Happens TV here on Jefferson Highlights. I hope you had a very happy holiday as we go ahead and we bring to you every month the best in horror conversation here on Horror Happens TV. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, JK. You can check out more about Horror Happens TV on the World Wide Web at horrorhappens.com. Also, follow us on Twitter at horrorhappensrs and check out facebook.com also for more information. With a lot of great horror going on and the up-and-coming Horror Happens Film Showcase, Saturday, January 10th, starting at 3 p.m., we are very honored to welcome in for this episode of Horror Happens TV the mind behind the film The Soulless Z-Day, Chris Eilenstine. He's a filmmaker from down the Jersey Shore area in the Long Beach area, I would say. A beautiful area to capture a film and the struggle that goes on when a zombie apocalypse comes abroad and people have to survive and be a part of each other's lives. Find those connections. Find the hope that there is going to be survival. And on today's episode of the show, we're going to talk with Chris about that and his part in the Horror Happens Film Showcase. With that in mind, again, you can go to horrorhappens.com to check out more information about it. On the same bill on that day will also be the critically acclaimed 2013 release, The Battery, by New England's own Jeremy Gardner. It's on IFC Midnight, and it is one of those films that falls into the same mold as The Soulless, where you see the struggle of two men coming together to survive something that's larger than them, but finding that connection with each other. We'll also have two short films as part of the Horror Happens Film Showcase. One being from Rue Morgue's Rodrigo Guadino, one of the best horror magazines across the country. With that, we're going to see the facts in the case of Mr. Hollow, as well as the short film from tri-state area filmmakers John I Was and San Sharati with Zombie Casserole, a near 30-minute zombie comedy. If you haven't figured out yet, it's going to be the films of the undead as part of the January 10th Horror Happens Film Showcase. Again, go to horrorhappens.com for more information not only on the Horror Happens TV and the film showcase, but the Horror Happens radio show, which brings to you some of the best conversation from the world of horror every Tuesday at 4 p.m. on Homegrown Radio. And speaking of which, we'd like to thank Homegrown Radio for being a part of that. I'm a little choked up over it because I love Homegrown Radio. And also, Diabolique Magazine, who we thank for their partnership as a part of Horror Happens Productions. Again, in just a moment, we're going to go ahead and talk with Chris Eilenstine, the filmmaker behind The Soulless, right here on Horror Happens TV. We're so thankful that you're here and being a part of the program this month. Thank you for being a part of it, and we'll be back in just a minute here on Horror Happens TV, only on Jefferson Highlights. Find us on Cablevision. Check horrorhappens.com for the listings, dates, and times. We'll be right back. We're back here in Horror Happens TV on Jefferson Highlights. Again, thank you so much for being a part of it. You can also find it on YouTube and go to horrorhappens.com for more information about it. With such a great year of independent horror films, a lot of stuff came from right here in the tri-state area, let alone New Jersey. We see films as a part of the Horror Happens Film Showcase like The Battery, like The Soulless, and we're here with the director, Chris Eilenstine, today in the program. Chris, thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Thank you, Jay.
and really going ahead and giving a voice here in New Jersey for filmmakers on the grand stage of independent film. Before we jump into the Soulless and the Horror Happens Film Showcase, you've been involved in film for, God, I want to say 13, 14, 15. I mean, you're only 29, mind you, so you have a short career
only
in this.
15 years.
You know.
No,
but talk a little bit about that and how you got involved, because you're big with the projectionist, with the traditional film, so much. Talk a little bit.
I became obsessed with film when I was 13, and my mother saw it, traded in a washing machine for a Super 8 movie camera, and I've been making films ever since. Film is just a fascinating art to me because it involves so many aspects of different kinds of art, music, editing. I wanted to be a comic book artist when I was a child, and then I discovered storyboards from different films, and I said that's what I want to do. And then it elevated to wanting to direct and write my own stories and so forth. And it's brought me here. Fortunately, the digital age has made it economically viable to make movies. When I went to film school, I spent $15,000 in 1986, which is about $90,000 in modern day money for a 15-minute student film.
Wow.
I've done a similar thing with the Soulless, and I've made 3 features out of it. So better looking, even though I like 16 millimeter and the grain and so forth. But there's opportunities for filmmakers now that was restrictive for me when I was in film school. I'm actually very envious of the opportunities young filmmakers have now with the technology they have available to them.
They have so many viable options, and I think that's something, you know, you look at each decade and generation, and different formats come out, different platforms to show the films, different technology, and you know, to see so much of it come and go. Now with the Soulless, you know, you have that technology to bring your vision to life.
It makes it much easier for your voice to be heard.
Oh, exceptional.
It doesn't mean everybody's voice should be heard, but it's a great opportunity. Recently, I met a gentleman who wanted to make a Hitchcock spoof. Yeah. And saw some of my other work. It was called MacGuffin, and I filmed that about 2 years ago. Where we put North by Northwest spoofs, and you know, Psycho and Rear Window, and all the films I was passionate about with Alfred Hitchcock are in that film as a satire. And we were filming that, and I literally went around this building, and I saw this desolated area of West Long Branch that was supposed to be demolished 12 years ago, and it's still standing there. And I'm saying, oh my God, this is my set for the Soulless. This is the kind of thing that cost $10 million in Scandinavia for, you know, that they build, and it's right there in Long Branch. So I said, here's my opportunity to make the Soulless.
And a lot of people, you know, who are not from the area of New Jersey, the tri-state area, they have preconceived notions of what New Jersey's about. But to be honest, you know, everything that was done with the Soulless was primarily done in the Jersey Shore area, and you have so many different backgrounds and settings throughout, you know,
it really
good stretch.
has a scale.
It does. That's a great way of putting it.
It looks expensive. Yeah. And because, but it wasn't. Yeah. You know, relatively
Smart
speaking.
filmmaking.
I mean, it's visually the film. I'm very, very proud of it because a lot of things became available to us throughout, and I was able to keep the story I had in mind, but expand the canvas. Wow. And these became available because of people's excitement about the story and what was going on. The talent just got better and better and better. So originally what was going to be one film and kind of a showpiece for a TV series I had in mind became 3 films that I was able to finish.
And we're going to see Z-Day as part of the Horror Happens Film Showcase.
Which is the first
of the
series.
Say, this is where the events fall into place, where you see characters
This
come
is
together.
Fellowship of the Ring or The New Hope. Okay, then I'm working on The Empire Strikes Back and The Return of the Jedi of the series, which is Soulless 2 is called Sanctuary. Yeah. And Soulless 3 is called Revelations.
Wow, and this is a different spin on the genre, because to be honest with you, you know, this is the kind of genre that really it has been overdone to find a reinventive twist.
Actually, people ask me what it is, and I reluctantly say it's a zombie film because it's really a science fiction film in which the human race is genetically altered to a primitive animalistic form. Like 99% of the world becomes early man, where we were pure instinct, our vision was not good. We lived to survive to the next day. And to me, that's more terrifying, more scientific, more intriguing as a story than zombies that would just want to eat people.
Exactly right. More meat on the bones.
The Soulless,
no pun intended.
Yeah, the Soulless are a group of people who've relatively remained unchanged by this genetic plague.
Yeah.
And they can exist amongst these zombie-like animalistic creatures without being attacked by them. And throughout the 3 films, you find out why this has happened. And the main 2 characters are a father and daughter who survive this initial Z-Day, which they name it later in the film series, the day the zombies took over, basically. Wow. I kind of play on this kind of pop culture we have, where the characters even in the 2nd and 3rd film call them zombies because they don't know how to explain it any other way. It's kind of a, you know, and even the father says they're not zombies. You know,
if I may ask, because that's a very interesting thing you bring up, because the fascination with zombies, with the undead, it's huge on TV. It's also big in the cinemas in the last decade, especially.
Right.
It's always been there, but just more the focus
and
now.
The original Dawn of the Dead is one of the films that made me want to make movies.
Romero stuff is brilliant when it comes to it, but that fascination of not understanding what these undead are. Do you think that plays a lot into the genre and part of the success, the continued success that you've been having with the filming of the Soulless?
Definitely. I mean, I want to make this a mystery. I want people to say, how was the human race changed in this movie? Basically, the premise is that a scientist who's basically can wield genetics in the way God can wield, you know, part the Red Sea. He can wield genetic material this way. And he says the human race is not going to survive Seth Rogen movies. It's not going to survive these clash of cultures, these clash of religions. We've got people that are 3,000 years in the past compared to others. And everyone is capable of destroying each other, and everybody thinks they're right. And he says what's going to happen then is annihilation. So he says, I'm going to give the human race another chance. I'm going to reboot humanity, just like rebooting a computer.
Exactly.
And he is 98, 99% successful. Wow. It's the other 1% that's the mystery. How is the 1% that seems to be unchanged or actually immune to this plague affected, and what is their purpose in reestablishing humanity? And we're going to see the main characters, a father and daughter, survive this plague, survive the first 12 years basically on their own without
a large timeline.
It's a large timeline. It's an epic kind of scale, and the first 3 films are basically how I envision the first year of the TV series.
Interesting.
But it's a 3-year story.
That's a good bridge to it. You're building up a solid foundation to lead it into something that will have a continuous focus.
What I'm hoping is that the Fox network, or if you guys are watching Sci-Fi, says, okay, we love your 3 films. Now here's a couple million per episode. Let's go redo it.
There you go.
For network television.
Nice.
I'm going to be about as prepared to present a TV series as anybody's ever been. That's my goal. That
preparation we've seen on the set of it, Chris. We've seen it with the actors who absolutely adore you. The crew that absolutely follows you. From what we saw, absolutely, yes.
They've stuck with it for 2.5 years, and originally it was not going to be that long. I was not planning to do the 3 full films. Like I said, it was going to be like, oh, here's the timeline. This is a scene from one of the episodes. This is to show a network. But all of a sudden, I had the means and the ability to fill in the 3 films, and everybody was game, and we did it.
The cast that's going to be a part of this, because the Soulless Z-Day is going to be the closing film of the Horror Happens Film Showcase, coming up Saturday, January 10th. More information, horrorhappens.com, where you can find out about tickets, about the schedule, start time and stuff. But talk a little bit about that cast, and you know, how important it was to get the right people to embody this storyline and timeline.
See, one of the ideal things about writing this story is I knew the story real well, but I knew the resources I had available to me and some of the actors and people I've worked with before. The nice thing about working in other films is you like collecting people that worked for you or are really good,
build
reliable.
that trust and relationship.
Right. You want to every film you should collect a few more people and bring them along. I got a little sidetracked. The original actor to play the father couldn't work out because he couldn't commit to the amount of time. He lived in Pennsylvania and so forth. And somebody suggested, well, what about this guy in the back room here in a straitjacket with a big, thick beard to play the father when I was filming MacGuffin? And I go, the guy back there, well, I'll talk to him.
Yeah.
Ended up shaving his beard. Is very handsome, former model, talented actor, Jason Probst, who's playing David Peterson, the father. So I lucked out with him. That was a great recommendation. Somebody said, get him.
Yeah, exactly.
Kaylin Iannone, who plays Nicole at age 12, I'd worked with previously, and you could just see it in her eyes that she had the focus and the passion.
Yeah.
And I've worked with enough actresses, you can see it when they have it. And she nailed it. She's brilliant in the movie. Couldn't have asked for a better Nicole. Age 12. You've seen the film.
Absolutely.
She's an amazing young actress. Jennifer Teska, who I've worked with before, plays Nicole at the age of 24. The end of the film jumps about 12 years.
Yeah.
You see Nicole, and it's an amazing transition because they're very similar in appearance. I wanted two people.
Yeah, it is.
I didn't want that Superman thing where Jeff East becomes Christopher Reeve, and you go, he didn't look anything like Christopher Reeve. It's an amazing transition. They really, I told them find little mannerisms, little things to make the characters similar, and they came up with the ponytail and the scarf and the kind of things to make the character similar.
A lot of uniquenesses within it.
They worked that out together.
That's fantastic. If I may ask, those are the two main characters. A lot of supporting characters, a lot of crew. How appreciative for you is it to have such dedicated personnel as a part of the Soulless?
Oh, you can't do it otherwise. Don't even try.
Nice.
That's my recommendation to people who are making these kind of films. Trust the people you're working with. Know what they're capable of. Don't ask them to do things that they're not capable of.
Absolutely.
Because that's when you'll stumble. Don't ask too much of people, but make it an enjoyable ride and give them the passion for the project.
That passion, and for those folks out there, it's going to be the world premiere of the Soulless at the Horror Happens Film Showcase. And Chris, I want to thank you again for, you talk about believing in aspects and projects. We thank you for being a part of this film showcase.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's our honor. With it, real quick, seeing the culmination of this, how does it feel to know that you're going to see it on the screen here at Camp Jefferson Theater?
Oh, it's very satisfying when it finally comes together, but it's also exhausting because you know what's involved with making it.
Absolutely.
I'm going to appreciate feedback. I want to make this as good a project as I can. There's always limitations with the budget, but I also found that those limitations kind of led us in new directions. Like, we can't do it this way, let's try it this way. And I'd say 90% of the time those decisions ended up helping the end product, which is amazing because that's never happened before on these kind of films for me before.
Where can they find out more information about the Soulless leading up to the Horror Happens Film Showcase? We
have a Soulless website. It's the Soulless Movie, Weebly.com. There's a Soulless page on Facebook. Kaylin Iannone has her own Facebook page, for example. She's going to be a star. And Jason Probst moved to Colorado on us.
Well, you know what? We look forward to seeing it with the Horror Happens Film Showcase.
Thank you.
And Chris Eilenstine,
thank you.
Thank you so much for being a part of the show here.
We're already wrapped up. Wow,
well, we're getting ready to go with it. And come out to the Horror Happens Film Showcase Saturday, January 10th. We'll be right back here on Horror Happens TV.
Thank you.
Here on Jefferson Highlights.
Thank you, Jay.
Back here in Horror Happens TV on Jefferson Highlights, I want to thank you, the viewers, for being a part of the show today. And thank my guest, Christopher Eilenstine, for coming on the show and talking about the film made right down here in the Jersey Shore, The Soulless Z-Day, which will be part of the Horror Happens Film Showcase Saturday, January 10th. It will join a lineup including short films, The Facts in the Case of Mr. Hollow from Toronto by Rodrigo Guadino of Rue Morgue, and right here in the tri-state area, John I Was and San Sharadi's Zombie Casserole. Plus the features including Jeremy Gardner's The Battery, which has been critically acclaimed on IFC Midnight, and it will join The Soulless, directed by Christopher Eilenstine. A big thank you again to Chris and everyone out there, and to the Jefferson Highlights crew for another successful episode. Find us on YouTube at youtube.com, the Horror Happens Radio Show channel on YouTube, as well as find us at horrorhappens.com for information on the Horror Happens Film Showcase, Horror Happens TV, and the Horror Happens Radio Show, heard weekly, Tuesdays, 4 p.m. East Coast time on Homegrown Radio. A big thank you to Diabolique Magazine, a partner in Horror Happens Productions. Join us next month when we go ahead and have on the show filmmaker extraordinaire Ryan Scott Weber, the Merry Horror Trilogy, as well as his new film he just wrapped on, Pretty Fine Things. With that, make sure you check out some of the great horror films this year in 2014. Recommendations including Contracted, Proxy, Housebound, and more. These films are some of the beacons of independent horror hope that you, the fans out there, should check out and support. Check out these films and see the growth of great labels like Magnet and IFC Midnight, ones where you can find films like The Battery, which will be a part of the Horror Happens Film Showcase. I am JK. Make sure and check out the Horror Happens Film Showcase at horrorhappens.com. And thank you so much for watching here on Jefferson Highlights.
up there.
I can't do that.
We talked about this for years.
No, you talked about this for years.
No!
What's with the cameras?
We're shooting a documentary.
Are you gonna be showing good people or bad?
Is there a difference?
What are you doing? You know why we're taping this. It doesn't make any sense. But it does. This means something to it.
John, what's on these tapes?
Yeah, John. What's on the tapes?
Oh my God! Oh my God! Somebody killed my dad! 911, what's your emergency?
Hey, I need you guys to get out here. I need the police out here right now.
What's going on, sir?
My neighbors have been murdered. 911.
Hi, welcome to Chamberworks. I'm Rob DeSerber, your host, and this month I'm here with Richard Chiarella from Accurate Pest Control. Hi, Rich. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks, Rob, for having me. Appreciate you having me here.
Absolutely. So why don't you just start off by telling the audience a little bit about Accurate Pest Control?
Well, Accurate Pest Control is a full-service pest management company. We service residential, institutional, commercial accounts. We specialize in homes, as well, residential, I should say, but we actually have a really good commercial department which works on third-party inspection companies. What that means basically is if you have a food establishment, a food processing plant, they have inspectors that come in and actually inspect their facility to make sure that the sanitation is good and everything's sterile and all that stuff. So we have a lot of accounts that pertain to that. And that's pretty much where our company goes. So, you know, we have a well-rounded commercial division as well as a well-rounded residential department.
Okay, great. You know, for a lot of the members of our audience, you know, that own their own homes, there's a lot of things that they can probably do to protect themselves, or, you know, hiring somebody like yourself to protect them from different pests. We were talking off camera before. You mentioned some of the damage that can be done by something like, let's say, termites, and the costs that are involved in that. Can you just explain what the damages that certain pests can create for a homeowner?
Well, on the termite end of things, a lot of times your homeowner does not realize they actually have a problem with termites. It takes some time